What is going on, guys and girls? How doing today? It's Single Roleplay here once again, and don't worry, I'm still playing Path of Exile. It's just I'm very burnt out with the league itself, and the league is dead itself, so there's pretty much nothing else to do except min-maxing some builds that I played within the league. So this is one of the builds that I played for the last couple of weeks, and this is the MANASTORM Stormbrand Hierophant. This is really cool off-meta build, and I'm not so sure that, people will find it interesting or will play it, but I wanted really to make this thing possible, and I did. That's what I want to show you guys. So the original plan was to use the new shield introduced in 3.9 called the MANASTORM. And the MANASTORM shield is pretty cool. It's pretty definitely unique interaction because it sacrifices all your mana and gives you 25 of this mana as an additional lightning damage to both spells and attacks. Pretty much anything that you want to use. You can use like Cyclone with lightning damage, Hand of Wisdom in action, all that shit. All kind of fancy things that can really benefit from this massive amount of added lightning damage. And, the trick about this thing is that it really needs to kind of recover mana very fast. Otherwise, it will also worthless. Like if you spend mana, if you kind of recover, because the window is really small. It's like only 4 seconds when you get the added buff of lightning damage. So you need to really like kind of spend everything, recover, like very fast. The only character that is capable of this is HIEROPHANT, which is the top tier mana regeneration in the game. At the same time, he has a crazy mana pool, as pretty much as close to what Guardian can have. So that's what I did. And the original plan was also to use the Ivory Tower shield, Ivory Tower armor, also introduced in 3.9. But the Ivory Tower is like, Chevron's wrappings, but instead it transitions chaos damage to the mana pool. But there is a big fucking problem interaction with the MANASTORM, because if you cast a spell and then your mana goes to 0 and some kind of poison spider hits you, you are practically instantly dead. There is different ways and people do it, like staking chaos resistance, going to Yule's Presence, Amulet, but honestly it's all kind of counterproductive towards the damage. It's possible to use it, but it will be like a little more toughness, but definitely way less damage. What I want to do, I want to give the maximum amount of damage you can get from the MANASTORM setup as a whole. Some solid gameplay that can do all damage, and this thing kills Cyrus 8, so it's definitely viable, definitely working. So let's get going. So just a little more about the build itself. Hierophant is definitely there for the mana regen, massive mana pool. At the same time, there's a lot of clarity interaction, so the Clarity Watcher's Eye will be very useful. At the same time, Stormbrand is a no-brainer, one of the best kind of spells, lightning skills in the game. That's why I went for the Stormbrand. I tried different things like, lightning tendrils, storm burst, all that shit, everything that's possible, and I came to the conclusion that Stormbrand is practically the best thing for this MANASTORM build, so just use that. If you want to try something else, definitely try it, it's very flexible, but I think Stormbrand is pretty fucking optimal. As for the build itself, it's definitely kind of, I would say mediocre build. It's not mind-blowing, like, destroying bosses in 1 second. It's not crazily tough. It has problematical toughness. You go shafts. You can get the Clarity Watcher's Eye and get like 10,000 ES, which I don't have on me. I opted for the Discipline on hit, Energy Shield Discipline on hit Watcher's Eye, which is kind of a lucky Watcher's Eye that I found. It's Clarity Recovery as well, so we can check it out in my build. That's what I got. It gives me like 2,000 less Energy Shield, like 1,500 probably less, but it gives me more recovery within the density, because when I hit something with a spell, I recover Energy Shields and make me really tanky within the density. Overall, the build is capable of doing everything that you need, delving, bossing, pretty much everything. It's kind of overall a pretty solid experience. If you want to try something completely off meta, I think I can recommend this build, although it would definitely not impress you as probably, some one-shotting super tanky builds out there. It's definitely not this kind of build, but it's still very, very solid experience. If you want to try out something interesting, something that probably no one plays, something that actually works, this is definitely a build for you. Before we go further into the video, I would like to stop for a second and thank my Patreon supporters and Twitch subscribers. You guys are making a huge impact on my life and allow me to get going and continue creating content for all of you. Thank you so much. If you want to make it into the list and immortalize yourself on the internet, join Patreon to get sneak peeks and behind the scenes footage of my work. I'm always looking for feedback on my content, guys, in order to improve, so making sure you always leave comment, like or dislike. Your reaction is very important. And remember,
you, yes you, are making a difference.
Alright, here we are in the path of building, and this is the actual build that I'm playing, the MANASTORM Stormbrain Hierophant, and this is the actual character that I have. As you can see, the damage is pretty damn nice. It's per brand, and we have how much, like 2 brands there, so that's about 3-4 maybe million of damage, which is not bad at all. I mean, it's not mind-blowing, it's not killing like instantly, but it does the job. So we started as the Templar over here and getting this damage and mana, this damage, and basically get all this Rider's Decree over there, and this is where we'll be traveling first, then go right there and take the Insightfulness, increases the as in mana, then travel to the very left, and this is your first priority, is to get an extra brand. Ruined Binder is your first priority out there. And then starts taking crit or arcane potency, transition to the right side, get the juice and natural calm, get the mental rapidity, more cast speed, get this crit, because staying crit for the spell, Stormbrain is a spell effectively, so I need to stack crit for this spell, so stack Annihilation, this is pretty mandatory for any spell, get the Lightning Walker. As soon as you get the Healthy Mind, you can get this Life Cruel Preparation as well as the bottom Heart and Soul to actually transform them into mana instead, so we can get like 5, 6, 7,000 mana. I have about 8,000 right now. Grab the Mystic Bulwark, Prodigal Perfection, which is really great synergies, give you spell damage based on your max mana. This is great. Get the Arcane Will, Arcane Focus, and transition to the right side. Get Crackling Speed, get Runesmith, get the Ridden Blood, and as soon as you transition fully into the Energy Shield and start leeching ES instead, Ghost River is mandatory. After that, this is practically like the last things is down below. There's Mana Dreamer, there's Fat Foresight, and when you get the Shafts, this is when you can really press Pen Attunement and go low life. This is when you'll be reserving most of your life with one fat 50% aura multiplied by the blood magic. That's about it. As for the skills, this is the auras, discipline, clarity, high level clarity and precision as much as you can. Just make sure you do not over level it, because the dex requirements will be shitty. Also, brand recall is here. Brand recall is kind of a thing that helps with the clear speed, because recalls all your brands, and it's easy to pop a lot of enemies in a single kind of a zap with the brand recall. For bosses, it's kind of pretty useless, because you know you will still be casting all your brands on the boss. They'll still attach on the boss, but for clear speed, brand recall is definitely cool. Enlighten here is not really needed, practically just there sits instead of the brand recall. It depends on what you want to use. As for the another feeling is Immortal Call, increased duration, custom damage taken. I manually cast Enduring Cry, giving me a free endurance charges, so there's no better way to utilize it than using Immortal Call to waste them. This is where your low life is. A Zealotry with Blood Magic, Lightning Trap, and Arcane Search is there to actually simulate Arcane Search. We will get Arcane Search here. Arcane Capacitor, 10% chance to get an Arcane Search when you kill an enemy, as well as this one gives 10% more, so there's 20% chance to get an Arcane Search when you kill. This is a little bit cheesy in terms of the bosses. This is what I have the bosses right here, but 20% chance is not bad. I think I will set it. You can remove it, it's still pretty solid damage there if you wish. So that's your low life, Zealotry, Blood Magic, and Lightning Trap. For bosses, between the Zealotry and Wrath, is absolutely no difference. Depending on what kind of watch's eye you can use, Zealotry I think is better because it gives you more different quality of life, like increased crit chance, and then mistake increased damage on the consecrated ground was affected by Zealotry. So overall, there is a kind of cheaper synergy with Watcher's Eye for Zealotry instead of the Wrath. Wrath jewels are mostly more expensive as a whole. This is your mobility. Show charge 45 first attacks, enduring cry, press it manually. Make sure to put these guys lower than your dex requirement. This is really high dex and strength requirement for this. This is my cheese custom damage taking golem because I get bored casting golem all the fucking time. You can manually cast him if you wish, but I'm just cheesed it out with custom damage taken. Cooling Strike Elemental Army, that's the reason for that. Even though we have elemental exposure here on the wand, which is mandatory to have, you can see 20% chance to inflict a lightning explosion hit. The way that exposure works is you can have only one source of exposure, and the highest exposure overrides the lowest one. So whenever we have this, it will override the lightning exposure on the wand. So, but just an additional source of lightning exposure, I think it's still worth it to have this support. You can use it if you wish. If you don't want, just remove it. And this, the Stormbrand Inspiration, Conk Effect, Energy Leech, Awaken, Lightning Pen, Awaken, LA Focus. That's the 6th thing you'll be using for the entire game. I also have Conductivity on my wand over here, as well as Spider on, I believe, the gloves. Yeah, I have Spider on the gloves. I will explain why I use Spider just in a minute. So, speaking about the Ascendancy, guys, the first thing you need to take is the Sign of Purpose, which gives you an additional brand, so we have like 3 brands. Then Divine Guidance, then Sanctuary of Thought, which is 20% max mana as yes, as well as the last overlap is the Conviction of Power. For the Pantheons, Brian King and Shikari, and for the Bandits, Kill All. That's it. For that, for the actual gear, this is the one that I got. It's pretty OP. +1 to all lightning spell, skill gems, conductivity on hit, a lightning explosion hit, and the crafted cast speed with chains to get an arcane search when you kill an enemy. Unfortunately, I don't have space for the spell damage here, but I think it's pretty much the best I could get on the trade. Attacks with the weapon does not penetrate any lightning resistance because I do not attack, I cast a spell, so it does nothing. But as a whole, I think this is pretty much the best thing you can get. What you need to look on this wand is the conductivity, exposure on hit, all spell skill gems, or some massive amount of spell damage, or just damage penetrates lightning resistance, something like that. The weapon too is an offhand. This is where MANASTORM is. When you cast a spell, sacrifice all mana to gain added maximum lightning damage. Guys, depending on 25 of your sacrifice mana for 4 seconds. And the way that works, it sacrifices your mana. It does not spend mana. Think about it. It does not spend. Look at this. They sacrifice all mana. This is a big difference because there is no interaction with sacrifice. I mean, you can use Indigon because for Indigon, for example, you need to spend mana. And this just sacrifices much, like throws it away. So there's literally no interaction so far whatsoever except for the shield. So you cannot utilize Indigons and all other fancy like mana spending things in the game. So keep this in mind. The helmet, the best in slot for damage is the Crown of the Inward Eye because it gives a transfiguration of soul, body, and mind. And transfiguration of the mind and all that shit just increases your spell damage based on your ES and all that fancy stuff. It also the helmet chant that you need to get on this is Stormbrand penetrates branded enemies lightning resistance. That's it. The other 2 options here is a Mind Spartan and a Memory Wall. The Memory Wall gives you like 7,000% more armor, which is really great for this build. You're really lacking armor, so if you get like this, as you can see, I get a shit ton more like armor, and if If you get an extra armor flask, it will be really OP. But at the same time, it is chemical is problematical because it reserves 10% more of everything, and I'm dropping below the low life. That's very hard to balance this stuff. So Mind Spiral, I think, is really better. It's pretty great. It's defensive, it's offensive, it gives you a shit ton of mana. So between these three, I will definitely select Mind Spiral for the survival ability and Crown of the Inward Eye for damage. That's about it. The body armor is shafts, and it's pretty standard. Like I said, I tried to fit Ivory Tower here, but it just no synergy with the MANASTORM as a whole, because you need to stack like 60-70 plus Chaos Res instead, or use the Chill's Presence, and this leaves no window for the Oza Pricing. This is what I want to use. Gloves are fingerless sin gloves with the unnerved enemies on hit, and this is another 10% more damage, I believe. So these gloves are pretty expensive. They're actually about like 10x, like 7 to 10x, but this way to craft this without any big problems. The boots are pretty absolutely standard boots with the increased mana. Make sure you get that. The boots enchant is lightning damage if you haven't killed recently, penetration or the crit chance if you haven't killed recently. The amulet is the Oza Pricing, and this is probably one of the most expensive parts. That's like what, 15-20x. This is the reason why I decided to make this build, because it can free up a lot of mana. Discipline reserves no mana. You can get the Zealotry reserves no mana and put Discipline there. But I think Discipline is better. Or Ref reserves no mana, but I think that Discipline reserves no mana is one of the best things you can get, because it can free up a lot of mana, and you can get this mana on the MANASTORM back as the extra damage. That's it. The ailment, the anointment, as you can see, as the Heart of Thunder for penetration on the Lightning Leech. The rings are nothing spectacular. Silurian Ring for the max mana, Energy Shield, Strength, Res. Moonstone Ring with intelligence, yes, res, fastest starter, yes, recharge. The belt is Crystal Belt or the Heavy Belt for the extra stats, or practically just the normal Stygian Vice for the extra jewel there. It's just very flexible. The Watcher's Eye is this. What I have is a double Clarity Discipline. The most important, I think, here is the increased mana recovery rate while affected by Clarity. This is one you need to look for originally. The next thing is basically if you get another Clarity mod on that, is good. If you get the Clarity as extra, yes, this is definitely GG, but I have never seen anything like that yet, and this probably will be too expensive. Another Watcher's Eyes are practically generic. That's just yes, mana resist, and then one Healthy Mind, as you can see over here, to transform life into mana. That's it. As for the flasks, pretty standard. Quicksilver, Diamond for the crits, Wise Oak because your make sure Lightning Res is the biggest, and the Bottle Faith is probably the most expensive one, but at the same time it just gives you the highest damage flask in a fucking game. So if you get your hand on that, definitely use that. This is like a lot of DPS. There's crazy amount of DPS on this shit. And the most important is the Enduring Eternal Mana Flask. This flask effect is not removed at full mana. This recovers your mana all the fucking time. This is practically the most important thing to get your mana back, as even being the Hierophant. That's about it. So that's about it for the build, guys and girls. I really hope you enjoyed it. That's a really cool, solid experience. If you've never played brands, if you never touched Stormbrand or the Hierophant, or overall spells as a whole, this might be an interesting experience for you, especially in this kind of off-meta variation, which is really niche, and not many people bothered with MANASTORM, I believe, except for Matil. He eventually got there too, motherfucker. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's a pretty solid, cool, interesting build. Kills everything, delves really nicely, kills Cyrus, kill the bosses, kill the Conquerors deathless. Not big of a deal. Definitely not mind-blowing, experience. Definitely doesn't one-shot shit. Definitely not the tankiest build in the universe, but it still does the job. clears everything, kills stuff, so definitely check it out. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.